Ayush was ready. He had 4 luggage bags. For the first time, he had to travel from Pune to Mumbai with so much luggage, but he was prepared. He was aware of the massive traffic on a Friday evening till the expressway bus stop, and then the struggle to catch a bus, a specific bus that leaves him near an railway station from where he would take a 15-minute train to his final stop that was just a 10-minute auto away from his home. Home, the word that brought all sorts of satisfaction and relief in his mind. He would finally go home after a whole month. He had been working 6 days, including over the weekend, instead of a regular 5 working days per week. It was a tough time for him. He rolled 2 of his largest suitcases on their wheels out of his office main gate at 3 in the afternoon while carrying a big backpack at his shoulder. The 4th bag was not a huge one, but a small carry bag with basic eatery stuff, his earphones, and other basic essentials that he would require during his journey. He had planned everything from the music for looking out of window or for sleeping to the TV show episode or a small movie to the accompanying biscuits and chips. While his mind rambled on about what to do first and what to save for later, he was stranded for 20 minutes on the bus stop. He awaited a bus to the expressway bus stop from his office. At such an unusual hour also, people started piling up. There was now a massive crowd waiting at the bus stop. 20 minutes soon turned to an hour. Many buses came, but none for the expressway bus stop. While the crowd decreased, the traffic started to increase. Soon came a green bus, the new one started by PMPL by government. It came and people started rushing in, while Ayush struggled to carry all his bags at the same time trying to cut the crowd and board onto the bus. One of his bags fell down in the crowd trying to board the bus. The bag faced an inevitable stampede of fellow travelers' shoes. Unfortunately, he missed his bus. As he picked up the fallen bag from the ground, it did weigh a little less. Strange, one must have thought, but Ayush had no time to notice this small change as he hoped for another bus. And another green one came charging into the bus. This time, a fellow traveler helped him with his bag, and they boarded the bus. They exchanged a few pleasantries of thanks and welcomes before Ayush started worrying about being stranded in traffic. It was the usual traffic at first, a little congestion after every mile, until came a massive blocker. At this junction, 4 routes intersected, and the only sane moderator of traffic was a traffic signal. It blinked all the lights red, yellow, and green in a chronological order, whereas the timer was stuck to a solid 99 seconds. Obviously, all hell broke loose. Bikers rushed in between the buses and cars like cockroaches and ants across the wrapper of a left-out fallen chocolate. This chaos soon turned into a minor accident between a biker and small car, followed by a heated argument. Finally, a nearby society watchman started regulating the traffic as much as he could. It still wasn't enough, as someone's car had crashed just at side pavement of footpath as a biker tried to overtake him. This had rendered a single lane to a total halt. While that lane vehicles started to diverge into other lanes, it created more and more congestion, until there were some cops and traffic cones surrounded the affected area. Slowly and steadily the traffic moved, but Ayush was too worried as the time ticked to 5:20. Around 5:45 he finally reached the expressway stop, and within few minutes he got his desired bus. While on one hand he thought about he left at 3, and at nearly 6 he had even covered 10% of his journey, but the other thought told him how he got both the buses with such comfort and heavy luggage. Also about the fact that he wasn't a part of an accident at the junction. He forgot all the details of time and travel, as an yellowish-orange light reflects off his spectacles. It was nearly sunset. He had spent all his evening either working or watching some video at his home. It was the first time in a while he saw a beautiful sky painted by sun rays and clouds shaded into a dark hue of magenta. It was like a much-needed relief in this tedious travel and quest to go home. The journey had just started, but this sunset had reminded him the day's almost over. Still, Ayush had this calm tenure in his mind, that no matter what happens next, he would reach home eventually. As he set aside his bags, at the back of his seat is a bunch of cyclers. They are all set in their gear and helmets. As Ayush thinks about having conversation with them about how challenging, and at the same time how exciting, it is to cycle for long hours, the bus takes a sharp turn off the expressway. King detour. Ayush thought to himself as the turn make him lose his balance. His small bag of food and earphones fell from his seat, but it's none of his concern, as he balances himself and rushes towards the conductor. He wanted to scream and cry about this detour, but before he could, conductor explained that it to him that this is due to the cyclers group. This detour transformed the journey on a rough road and full of bumps. What started with sight of sunset and a promise of taste of adventure soon resulted in bumps, loss of his food supplies, and a detour. Still, to distract himself from the constant reminder of being late and ticking time, he eventually walked to the group of cyclers and talked about their upcoming adventure. Turns out it was a morning cycle trip from some point in Lonavala. As they talked about their fun little mishaps during cycling and how, despite the adversities, they never gave up on their hobby, Ayush was convinced that once a month he could join these guys for these adventures, and this bus was a convenient option too. He is now reminded that all the movies and music he downloaded was basically just media storage in his phone, and not the tools of entertainment he had expected them to be. This hobby of cycling reminded him how he never had a hobby because of all the constant work shifts and traveling he does. Bus takes a halt, and conductor announces that there would be 30 minutes break as they had to eat dinner. Usually, this meant the journey was half done, but what irked him was the fact it was dinner time. His watch showed time as 8:45. He was supposed to have dinner at home. His stomach growls due to hunger. He sees the cyclers grouped apart and waves them a bye. Before he could answer his hunger, he had to answer a query by a young girl about where the bus would go and about cost of the ticket. Ayush answered them promptly in return for a sweet, cute smile by her, and proceeded further to freshen up. After he freshened up, he observed a little short white hair at his left side of the ear. He was shocked and amazed. A white hair in his age was highly unusual. He had to move aside from the washroom as other people freshened up. Wondering about the strange white hair, he proceeds to bus and finds the young girl seated next to his. He didn't mind her. In fact, he loved this coincidence. They exchanged their names, their work profile, shifts, and a little about themselves as the bus moved ahead. Ayush was really tired and hungry. He was about to fall asleep, but he still took an effort to check his bag for some leftovers, and there were none. The girl, Tanya, offered her few biscuits with a warm smile. As he munches on the biscuits, the bag rests on the girl's lap. Within minutes, Ayush falls asleep, and the girl uses the bag as pillow to sleep on. Ayush feels a little pat on his right shoulder. Probably the girl found the shoulder a better pillow. Both of them smile, but he is fast asleep, and the wind gushing from the window makes sure he stays asleep for a while. His sleep is intervened by the conductor's screams of the name of the stop. He wakes up an instant and takes his bags. However, he only finds one of them at top shelf of his seat. He worries about the second and third. He looks at Tanya to find a young baby in her lap instead of the bag, and even her hair had started to turn white like his from the left side. The conductor is screaming the stop name in horror now. His screams keep getting louder, but everyone is sound asleep. He checks the time to see it's 11:45, and the last train is of 11:52. He has to rush, or else he would again be stranded. Something compels him to stay despite the horrific screams of conductor. He feels the seat warmth. The girl's company is like a blessing to him. He wants to find out about the baby, about the missing bag. In that moment, none of these things seem weird. They feel real. They seemed real and normal to his heart, but his mind had started to wonder something that he couldn't recollect. It seemed like his memory was slipping away. He rushes with the only bag he has left now. It feels fine to him that he only had such little luggage, and it felt much, much lighter than before. He runs towards the station and boards the last train towards his end of this weird, twisted journey. The train is of old design, the red ones that were used in Mumbai instead of the new white grayish ones. He would normally be worried about the timing, the missing bag, the girl he loved to interact more with, but a very strange thought crosses his mind. It had been nearly 9 hours and he received 0 calls or notifications from his home. The train is crowded. He struggles to reach his pocket to find his phone. It's covered in blood stains across the edges of its lock button. He tries to turn it on. It doesn't turn on or even light up. This journey had started to hurt his head more and more now. His mind wanted to worry and wonder, but he couldn't. It was as if he is losing control of what was happening and what he wanted to think. The train's noise of its steel wheels hitting the track reduced as the train come to an halt, but still the noise of ambulance and police cars fills the surrounding. Ayush leaves his only bag behind towards the door of the train coach to check what was happening. He cuts through the crowd. The crowd seemed very familiar to him. He thought he knew them. He proceeds to see outside, to find a massive signal with a blinking red light. The red light blinks on and on as he stares into it. He is hypnotized by it. The red light blinks on, and the whole scene turned dark, pitch black, except the signal and its blinking light. It was as if he had closed his eyes. Everything disappeared from his eyesight, and in a flash of a second, his whole journey blinked past before him. Everything seemed like just a second had passed, and indeed only a second had passed. As Ayush lied dead on the floor, in the middle of the road junction near his office where the traffic was jammed, he sees multiple injured people that he remembered from the train he boarded on. The scene is filled with ambulances and police cars. None of it mattered. He had witnessed his whole life in this journey flash across his mind in just a second. His hobbies, his need for a companion, his weight of responsibilities, and a gift of life with his companion had been showcased to him. The signal is blinking red as he looked at it one last time. The blood flows across his left eye to the broken blinking white phone's display lying near him. He closes his eyes for the first time in his life, content with the fact that he was never ever going to feel being at home again.